"Nobody move or we start shooting the kids," shouts the masked gunman as he bursts into Jefferson Elementary during morning assembly. In the back of the auditorium, 82-year-old janitor Robert "Tank" Sullivan and 80-year-old crossing guard William "Doc" Martinez lock eyes across the room, their old military instincts instantly taking over as 400 children scream in terror. What these two war heroes do next will give you chills and restore your faith in true American courage. If stories like this remind you why we honor our veterans, smash that subscribe button and tell us about a hero in your community. Their bravery deserves to be shared. It was 9:15 a.m. on a Tuesday when everything changed at Jefferson Elementary School. The monthly assembly had just started, with 400 students packed into the auditorium listening to the principal talk about upcoming events. Robert Sullivan was mopping the hallway outside, taking his time like he always did. At 82, Tank moved slower than he used to, but he'd been the school janitor for 15 years and knew every corner of the building. William Martinez was finishing his morning crossing guard shift, helping the last few late arrivals get safely to class. Doc, as everyone called him, had been protecting kids at this intersection for 12 years. Rain or shine, neither man was supposed to be in the auditorium when the three armed men kicked open the main doors. "Get on the ground." Now the first gunman screamed, waving an assault rifle at the packed room, full of children and teachers. The second attacker moved to block the exit doors while the third one positioned himself near the stage where Principal Hayes stood frozen. In shock, children started crying and screaming. Teachers tried to shield their students with their own bodies. The sound of pure terror filled the air. Tank heard the commotion from the hallway and immediately knew what was happening. His combat instincts from Vietnam kicked in faster than his arthritic joints should have allowed. He grabbed his radio and whispered into it. "Doc, we got multiple hostiles in the main auditorium. Armed and dangerous." Doc's voice crackled back immediately. "Copy that, Tank. I'm moving to the east entrance." "How many?" "3 that I can see. They've got the kids trapped. On my way." Both men had been in situations like this before, just not with children involved. Tank had been a Green Beret in Vietnam, specializing in rescue operations. Doc had been a Navy SEAL, trained in hostage situations. That was 50 years ago. But some training never leaves you. Tank moved carefully toward the auditorium, using his mop bucket as cover. Through the small window in the door, he could see the chaos inside. The lead gunman was shouting demands. "We want all police to back off. Nobody comes in or out until our demands are met." A kindergarten teacher named Mrs. Peterson was holding 3 crying 5-year-olds, trying to keep them calm. Near the front, 4th grader Emma Rodriguez was shaking with fear, tears streaming down her face. Tank's heart broke seeing those scared kids, but he forced himself to stay focused. He counted weapons, noted positions, looked for weak points in their setup. His radio buzzed softly. Doc's voice was barely audible. "I'm at the east door. Can you create a distraction?" Tank thought quickly. The gunmen were focused on the crowd, not watching their perimeter. That was their first mistake. "Give me 2 minutes," Tank whispered back. Tank abandoned his mop bucket and moved to the school's maintenance room. His hands, shaking from age and adrenaline, found what he was looking for: the main electrical panel. He'd rewired parts of this old school building dozens of times over the years. He knew exactly which breaker controlled the auditorium lights. Meanwhile, Doc had slipped into the building through the east entrance. His crossing guard uniform and familiar face meant none of the staff questioned why he was there. Doc made his way to the school's office, where he found the secretary hiding under her desk. "Mrs. Chun," he whispered, "are the police coming?" She nodded, too scared to speak. "Good. I need you to call them back and tell them 2 veterans are inside and about to engage. Tell them to be ready to move in when the lights go out." Doc had spotted something the gunman missed: the old school's Haas system had speakers throughout the building, including the auditorium. If he could get to the main microphone back in the auditorium, the situation was getting worse. The lead gunman was getting agitated, waving his weapon dangerously close. To the children, I said nobody moves. He screamed at a teacher who had tried to comfort a crying student. Tank positioned himself at the electrical panel, his hand on the main breaker. He spoke softly into his radio. "Doc, you ready?" "Born ready," came the reply. Tank killed the lights. Auditorium plunged into darkness. Children screamed, but this time it was different. This time, the screaming masked the sound of two old warriors going to work. Doc's voice boomed through the PA system, using the command voice that had once led men through combat zones. "This is Chief Petty Officer William Martinez, United States Navy. You are surrounded by federal agents. Release the hostages immediately and surrender your weapons." The gunman spun around in confusion, trying to locate where the voice was coming from. In the darkness, they couldn't see Tank moving along the wall, getting closer to their position. "That's not the police," the lead gunman shouted. "Someone's trying to trick us." But doubt was creeping into their voices. In the dark, with an authoritative voice echoing around them, they were losing control of the situation. Tank reached the first gunman from behind. 50 years of age melted away as muscle memory took over. A sleeper hold, applied with precision. Dropped the man silently. "One down." Doc kept talking over the PA, his voice calm and professional. "You have 60 seconds to comply. Federal snipers have you in their sights." The second gunman was panicking now, waving his weapon wildly in the dark. "Where are they? Where are the feds?" Tank was already moving toward him when the emergency lighting kicked in, casting eerie shadows across the auditorium. The remaining gunman could see Tank now, an 82-year-old man with gray hair and a janitor's uniform, walking toward them with no fear in his eyes. "Get back, old man." The second gunman screamed, "I'll shoot you." Tank never slowed down. "Son, I've been shot at by experts. You don't scare me." The gunman's hand was shaking as Tank got closer. He pulled the trigger, but nerves made his aim wild. The shot went high, hitting the ceiling. Tank was on him before he could fire again. Years of cleaning floors had kept the old soldier stronger than he looked. The weapon clattered across the floor as both men went down. The third gunman, seeing his partners defeated, started backing toward the exit. But Doc was waiting for him there. No longer the friendly crossing guard the kids knew. This man was Chief Petty Officer Martinez, veteran of 2 tours in Vietnam, trained killer, protector of the innocent. "Drop it, son," Doc said quietly. "It's over." The young man looked at this 80-year-old in a crossing guard uniform and made a fatal error in judgment. He raised his weapon toward Doc. Doc moved faster than anyone his age should be able to move. Years of helping kids cross the street had kept his reflexes sharp. He disarmed the gunman with techniques he'd learned decades ago, but never forgotten. By the time the police tactical team burst through the doors, all 3 attackers were on the ground, disarmed and unconscious. Tank and Doc stood among the 400 children and teachers they'd just saved, looking like nothing more than 2 tired old men in work uniforms. The police commander stared in disbelief. "You two did all this?" Tank shrugged. "We've had practice." The children, who had been terrified moments before, began to realize what had happened. Their janitor and crossing guard had saved them. Little Emma Rodriguez ran to Tank and hugged his legs. "Mr. Tank, you're a superhero." Tank knelt down to her level, wincing from his arthritis. "No, sweetheart. I'm just an old soldier who couldn't let anything happen to you kids." Doc was surrounded by students. He'd helped cross the street every morning for 12 years. They all wanted to hug the man who kept them safe. The media arrived within hours. By evening, the story was national news. 2 elderly veterans, working humble jobs at an elementary school, had single-handedly stopped an armed attack. But when reporters tried to interview them, Tank and Doc deflected attention away from themselves. Any veteran would have done the same thing, Tank told the cameras. We took an oath to protect people. That oath doesn't have an expiration date. Doc nodded in agreement. These kids are our community's future. We weren't going to let anyone hurt them. The school district tried to give them medals and recognition, but both men preferred to keep working their regular jobs. However, things did change. The children looked at Tank differently as he mopped the halls. They saw him as their protector, not just the janitor. They would wave and say good morning with new respect in their voices. Doc's crossing guard post became a place where kids lingered to talk, asking him questions about being brave and protecting others. 3 months later, the school held a special assembly. This time, it was to honor Tank and Doc with the highest civilian awards the state could give. But the moment that mattered most came when every child in the school stood up and recited something they'd written together. Thank you, Mr. Tank and Mr. Doc, for keeping us safe. Thank you for showing us that heroes don't wear capes. They wear janitor uniforms and crossing guard vests. They mop our floors and help us cross the street. And when we need them most, they become the soldiers they've always been inside. Tank wiped his eyes as 400 young voices filled the auditorium with gratitude, instead of screams. After the ceremony, a young teacher approached them. How did you know what to do? How were you so brave? Doc smiled and put his hand on Tank's shoulder. Ma'am, we stopped being afraid of dying a long time ago. When you reach our age and you've served your country, the only thing that scares you is letting down the people you've sworn to protect. Tank nodded. Those kids depend on us every day. Doc helps them cross the street safely, and I keep their school clean and secure. We weren't going to let some punks change that dot as they walked out together, two old friends who had become local legends. Doc asked Tank a question. Think we're getting too old for this kind of excitement? Tank chuckled. Doc, we're probably too old to be mopping floors and directing traffic, but we're still doing that too. They laughed together. Two warriors who had found their purpose not on foreign battlefields, but in the hallways and crosswalks of Jefferson Elementary, where 400 children slept safer because their protectors never really stopped being soldiers.